You're watching the Knox Pages.
You are watching the Knox Pages.
You're watching the Knox Pages Game of the Week.
Welcome into the Knox Pages Game of the Week. My name's Grant Pepper. I'm a reporter at KnoxPages.com, and this is the first episode of what will be a season-long weekly video series where we will take you around the county for the biggest Knox County high school football storylines each week, as well as previewing one game each week and dedicating that as our Knox Pages Game of the Week. This first week is a special season preview edition where we will go around the county and talk to coaches and players from all 5 high schools to preview the upcoming season. With the season just a few days away, let's get things started here right in the county seat at Energy Field and Mount Vernon High School, where the Yellow Jackets have something to prove this season. Mount Vernon is coming off a 4-6 season in 2017, where they finished 4th of 7 teams in the Ohio Cardinal Conference. The Yellow Jackets are losing some key playmakers from last year's team, including starting quarterback Jackson Gregory, starting running back and wide receiver Logan Tate, as well as all-state defensive player Marcus Schellenbarger, among many others. This year's team will be young, yes, but the biggest challenge that third-year head coach Mike Kerr has faced has been developing a winning mindset with his players. After all, Mount Vernon hasn't had a winning season since 2013, and they haven't made the playoffs since 1993.
You know, that is kind of our toughest job, right? Is trying to figure out how can we go from just getting through to getting better each and every day. And that's something we've talked about. We start every morning off with a mindset talk, and we have the kids kind of share some stuff with us and kind of where they are. And I think that we're starting to see them communicate better with each other out on the field. And you know, we brought a little competitive segment to start every practice. So every practice starts with a competition, and there's winners and losers. And I think the kids have really bought into it and responded to it, and I'm really pleased with the mindset so far.
Senior linebacker Harry Ogle says that process hasn't been easy.
Developing a winning culture in my mind is all about the mindset. And throughout 2 days, throughout camp, we focused on being mentally tough and going above and beyond, pushing yourself beyond your limit. And every day we get out here, we grind, we work, we condition way more than we did last year. We push ourselves way beyond what we did. And I think that's going to develop our winning culture here. We're going to be physically and mentally tougher than our opponents, and we're going to be ready to come out and win.
How have practices been so far?
They've been difficult, I'm not going to lie. They've been rough. We've had some kids puking. But after it, you feel great. I mean, you feel like you accomplished something. The difficulty is it's a lot harder than what we've seen in the past. I've enjoyed it, though. I always like a challenge, so it's fun to come out and work.
While Mount Vernon did lose many of their playmakers from last season, Coach Kerr does like what he's got back this year.
You know, I think right now, offensively, you know, we've got some new kids coming in, but man, we've got some real talent. You know, I see some offensive linemen that we've got coming back. Devin Campbell and Austin Kerr is really being great stalwarts on the offensive line. You know, we've got Ashton Fisher coming back. He's moving more to a running back than a wide receiver. Really see him having an explosive year this year. Defensively, you know, we start with our free safety, Isaiah Mickley, who is fantastic. You know, an all-conference type player last year, and moved down. We've got Harry Ogle in the middle, and we've got a defensive line that's going to be young, but man, they really get after. So real pleased with where we are on both sides of the ball.
One thing Coach Kerr also noted was that many of Mount Vernon's 6 losses last year came in the 4th quarter. He hopes that the team's rigorous off-season training program will help them push through in the 4th quarter and win the mental game this year.
You know, going back to the mindset thing, you know, I think it's a mental toughness thing. I think it's a belief thing. I think we had the talent to win those games last year. I think we've got the talent to win these games this year. But, you know, being out in the elements like we were today in this heat and continuing to push themselves and not feeling sorry for themselves when things are down and when something gets tough. And I think we've put them in situations that are tough that they've had to overcome. So I think in the 4th quarter this year, they're not going to be surprised by anything they see. I think in the 4th quarter, we're going to excel, be ready to go, and you know, the conditioning and mindset piece has been big, and I really think the kids have responded to that, so I'm excited to see them in the 4th quarter this year.
And even though Mount Vernon hasn't made the state playoffs since 1993, this year's seniors have set the bar high.
Yeah, I feel like ever since I was in 7th grade, you know, my dad's team was the last team to go to the playoffs in 1993, and ever since 7th grade, I've always had that dream of, you know, being that team that makes it back to the playoffs, and so yeah, that's been my dream ever since 7th grade, and I mean, this is all I got, so give it up, everything we got, and just enjoy every moment of it, and just have great practice every day, and whatever happens, happens. But we're just going to lay everything out there.
Your one big number for Mount Vernon, 6. That's the combined win total for the teams that Mount Vernon beat last season, with the winningest being West Holmes at 3-7. The Yellow Jackets will certainly have a lot to prove in developing a winning culture in 2018. Mount Vernon's first game will be this Friday at Marion Harding. Meanwhile, out in Howard, the focus is less on developing a winning culture and more on building upon one. The East Knox Bulldogs are coming off of a season in which they started 7-0, and then they lost their last 3 games, which put them out of contention for a Knox Morrow Athletic Conference title and 1 spot out of the playoff hunt. Simply put, this year's theme at Howard: finish.
I think it's a lot of motivation for our players, because they know how hard they worked and how close they were, but how far yet it still was away from our grasps. And so it's a lot of motivation from day one through the first 10 weeks to make sure we do what we can to make the best of every opportunity that we're given.
East Knox will welcome back many playmakers from last year's team, including starting quarterback Caden Lester, running back Kason Crownapple, and wide receiver Caleb Gallwitz. For the first time in a long time, expectations are high this year in Howard for the East Knox Bulldogs.
It's been amazing. Honestly, the team that we have this year is probably one of the better teams that has come through East Knox. Everyone tends to overlook us, we're not all about that, so we're going to try to take our maturity level to up a notch and really try to outplay every team on our schedule.
Crownapple says that last year's bitter finish has stuck in the minds of the Bulldog players throughout this offseason, and that this year they'll try to wash those memories clean.
It's definitely there. Every rep, every practice, it's honestly in the back of your head, but you just got to move on. It'll play itself out this year.
Your one big number for East Knox this season: 21. Last year in East Knox's first 7 games, which they all won, they scored 37 points per game. Meanwhile, in the last 3, which they lost, they scored just 16, a difference of 21 points between the wins and the losses last year for the East Knox Bulldogs. This year, they'll try to bridge that gap and come closer to perfection. East Knox will open up their season on Friday night when they play West Muskingum on the road. Now let's take you across Knox County to Fredericktown High School, where the Freddies enter year 1 of the Bo Wolford era. Wolford coached the last 4 years at K-Mac foe Cardington Lincoln, but when he saw that the Fredericktown position opened up this last winter, the Knox County native knew it was time to come home.
Yeah, Fredericktown's just, full of a lot of rich history and tradition and that kind of thing. Growing up as a Knox County guy, you hear about all the county schools in Fredericktown in particular and the traditions that they have in place already. So, it was kind of just a natural swing for me. I want to get back into the county and come here to Fredericktown. So.
Fredericktown went 5-5 last season, finishing tied with East Knox for 4th in the Knox Morrow Athletic Conference in the final year under former head coach Will Hartley, who resigned last winter. The biggest change when Coach Wolford took over: the offense. Fredericktown is traditionally a power I program, a ground and pound run team, whereas Wolford is trying to implement spread elements to this year's offense. Given that Fredericktown rarely passed the ball last season, Wolford's been impressed with the team's ability to transition offenses so far this year.
Every time you implement any kind of new scheme, you're going to have its ups and its downs and bumps along the way. I think that primarily, they're kind of used to that ground and pound style method, and we're a little bit more spread out finesse type offense. So, we've had our lumps, but I think the kids are overall they're embracing what we're doing and working to make all those parts and pieces click and put together. So.
While the Freddies are losing some of last year's bigger playmakers, such as quarterback Jimmy Nussbaum, linebacker Xavier Stallard, one of the bigger challenges facing the Freddies this season will be a limited-sized roster. Only 29 guys came out for the team this year, although Fitzpatrick doesn't seem to think that will be an issue, as the team hopes to make a leap and return to the state playoffs this season.
We just got to be smart with it. The guys that we have, you did say it is short. We have realized that, but we have some dogs out there. We have some guys that are going to hit you in the mouth, and they're not going to come out taking a playoff because they have a stinger. So I think it's honestly no big deal at all. We just got to really grind it out and toughen it out. There's been a lot of talk, people talking about, we can't make playoffs. We're too short. We just kind of sweep that under the rug and put a chip on our shoulder for that, because we definitely know we're a playoff team and we can beat playoff teams.
Your one big number for Fredericktown: 21. The Freddies passed the ball just 21% of the time last season, a number that will likely rise quite a bit under Coach Bo Wolford in his first season running a little bit of a spread offense. Fredericktown will kick off their season on Friday night at Clear Fork. The next stop on our preseason tour takes us out to Danville, where the Blue Devils are coming off their second Final Four trip in the last 3 years. Danville won the Knox Morrow Athletic Conference last year alongside fellow co-champ Highland after tallying a 6-1 conference record. They finished 12-2 falling to Cuyahoga Heights in the D7 state semis. This year the Blue Devils will look to make it back to the state playoffs for the 8th straight year, but it'll be a much different looking team this season out in Danville. Quarterback Skylar Durbin's graduated, and he threw for over 3,000 yards last year and was a 2-year starter. Head coach Ed Honneberger says that 2 guys have been competing this offseason for that starting quarterback job, senior Dalton David and junior Charlie Cook.
We got to be more basic this year, especially right now, grooming a first-year starter quarterback. We can't be as advanced as, Skylar started for 2 years and he got to play a lot as a sophomore because we had a lot of big leads, so we got him in there. So, we got to cut down on formations, cut down on plays, and just ease everybody into things.
Along with Skylar Durbin, Danville also loses 2 other All-State players from last year's Final Four team, wide receiver Bryce Berger and defensive lineman Marshall Stoll. Now, Danville also welcomes back quite a few starters, including Chris Greenwald, a senior running back, and Dylan Wilson, a senior lineman, who both believe the Blue Devils have enough pieces back to make another run this season.
Yeah, well, hopefully, we have the potential to go just as far, if not farther. It's just we got to work together and play as a team.
Yeah, we just need to bust our butts and practice and get stuff done. And I think we'll do just as good or better.
Regardless of who's on the field this year for Danville, Honneberger knows that his team will have a target on its back because of its history of success. And that's just the way he likes it.
Just the bullseyes on our back, and that's the way we like it. That's the way it typically is. We've had some great success here through, the 105 years of football, and especially the last 20 years. We've had a nice run. So people like to play Danville, and people like to beat Danville. So we got to be ready every week, and that's always a challenge. And, we got to sort of play that chip on our shoulder.
Your one big number for the Danville Blue Devils this season, 7. Danville has made the state playoffs 7 straight years and will try to make it 8 this fall. Under head coach Ed Honneberger, they have made the playoffs 10 of the last 14 years. The Blue Devils will open up their 2018 campaign on Friday at Lucas. And our last stop on this Knox County preseason trip will take us out to Centerburg, where the Trojans are looking to climb back out of the KMAC cellar after a 2-8 2017 season. Centerburg finished 7th of 8 teams in the KMAC, just 1 season after going 8-3 and qualifying for the state playoffs. Now, despite the youth on last year's team, where a lot of underclassmen were leading the program against a top-heavy Knox Morrow Athletic Conference, head coach Andy Colella still says that season was not up to the program's standards, and he hopes that last year's growing pains will help the team move forward this season.
Yeah, obviously we know how to do that. We've been there before, and it's been established here. And sometimes things don't go your way, even though you want them to. That's part of life, and you just kind of gotta roll with it and learn from it and move on. We don't like to dwell on those things, but at the same time, those are your biggest learning experiences from your struggles and your challenges and things like that. So, we talk about it a little bit, but at the end of the day, we got to move forward. And it's time to get going, and they've done a great job with that and use those prior experiences, whether it was last year or the year before. They've had both ends of the spectrum there, so and they've done a great job handling that so far.
The Trojans are bringing back a lot of experience this season, even if that means youthful experience. That includes sophomore starting quarterback John Shisby, who played the last 2 games of his freshman season, as well as senior all-KMAC returners Steven Schmidt at running back and Michael Kuhn at linebacker.
We have some experience. If you look at, depending upon what lineup we have in or what personnel we have in, we have anywhere from 7 to 9 guys who have quality experience over the last 2 years, even though there's some young kids in there. So that's helped us out. We tried to tell them, communicate with them. It's not necessarily the grade that you're in, it's the experience that you have. So we have a lot of guys coming back. Now they need to use that experience the right way and the correct way.
When it comes to goals this year, the main thing for Centerburg is to finish. Even though they lost 8 games last season, a lot of those games were good games until the 3rd or 4th quarter when the Trojans fell off. And at the end of the day, the Centerburg Trojans want to make it back to where they have recently been, which was in the conference title conversation.
During practices, I mean, we focus on finishing. I mean, we failed to finish last year, like, obviously. So, I mean, just finish games. That's all we need to do.
Yeah, we kind of lost the will last year. A lot of people just kind of like gave up. The energy died. That's one thing we're working on. Is just keeping the energy, like for 4 quarters, so we can finish out strong instead of, like you said, giving up like halfway through.
What are some of your goals this season?
League.
Yeah, win
League.
beat our rivals.
Yeah.
Make playoffs.
Yeah.
Beat Fairtown.
Yeah.
Your one big number for Centerburg this year? 4. Last year, during Centerburg's 8 losses, they averaged just 4 points per game on offense, while giving up an average of 36 points per game. Centerburg will try to close that gap this year and contend in the 2018 season. Their Week 1 matchup will be at Utica, a local rivalry game on Friday night. Well, that's going to do for this week's edition of the Knox Pages Game of the Week. We rolled pretty quickly through the main storylines coming into the 2018 season for all 5 county teams, but for more in-depth previews of each team, make sure to go to our website, knoxpages.com, where we laid out previews each day last week for each of the county's 5 teams, looking in-depth at roster turnover, who they've got back, and what to look for this season, and things like that. So make sure to check that out. Also, feel free to follow our Knox Pages sports coverage all season long at knoxpages.com, and to follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Knox Pages. I'm Grant Pepper. Thank you for watching the first ever edition of the Knox Pages Game of the Week. We'll see you next time.